Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 594 for the 1st of March 2020. This week coming to you live from Surf Coast Summer Skepticamp 8. Hooray! Oh, you do that so well. What a pleasure it is to come down to Victoria. I haven't been to this part of Victoria before, and it's just wonderful to take part in Skepticamp. Coming up on this week's show, Trish Hann looks at what use are face masks with the current virus worries. We have Michelle Bijkersma. She's going to be talking about this week a logical fallacy appeal to Antiquity. We have information from the Australian Skeptics Newsletter, what's coming up, and also Maynard at Skepticon 2019 interviews Cara from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and Jennifer Bernstein. All that coming up on this week's show, but now it's time for me to put down this microphone and get on with my talk. Let's have some Trish and chips. Here's Trish Hann.
Here in Australia, as the temperature rises and summer gets going, some items become incredibly popular in the shops. Fans, ice cream, Zupa-Dupas, swimwear, you get the idea. Well, this summer, one of the most popular purchases across the eastern states at least, has been the humble P2 mask. A friend to medical professionals, firefighters, builders and graffiti artists everywhere. This is an item most people haven't paid any attention to, until recently. As I'm sure most of you know, Australia recently had the most extreme bushfire season ever, and the loss of life, nature and property has been devastating. The sheer amount of fire front has meant that even city folk like me have experienced some of the effects of the burning. For weeks, a permanent smoky haze filled the skies, and even indoors the smell of smoke penetrated everything. I live nearly 100 kilometres from the nearest large bushfire, and I was finding burnt leaves on my balcony and a thin layer of ash on my furniture. It was inescapable. Obviously, this constant exposure to smoke is a health hazard, even for those of us with no medical conditions. And while the advice has been to stay indoors, at work last month we could smell the bushfire smoke in the emergency department. It was everywhere. Then the rain came and did the job that even a properly funded fire service would have struggled with, and the fires were extinguished. But as one crisis dampened, another emerged, and the outbreak of COVID-19, with infections in Australia well into the double digits, has got people reaching for their masks again. But the effectiveness of masks in relation to both of these threats is hugely dependent on the skill of the wearer and the type of mask they use. There are two main types that I'll be talking about: the surgical type, which protects against direct splashes, and the disposable P2 type, which also protects against airborne threats. The difference between them is that the P2 masks, when worn correctly, create a seal around the face, preventing air from bypassing the mask. Surgical masks do not. In fact, surgical masks are often worn for long periods of time and by design have gaps at the side to allow air to flow across the face. This inherently reduces their effectiveness. As an aside, for decades the accepted wisdom amongst surgeons was to sneeze directly at the patient while operating, as there was some thought that droplets would be ejected sideways, and if you turned your head away you were shooting phlegm into the patient's open wound. This has since been tested using pepper and slow motion filming and has been debunked. The advice now is that if you're going to sneeze, follow your instincts. So, a P2 mask will help filter out smoke and pathogens, while a surgical mask will help stop sneezes getting in and out, but will allow other airborne nasties to sneak in the side. Surely then, everyone should be wearing P2 masks all the time when out and about, right? Well, as someone required to wear one for long periods at work, I can tell you, you really don't want to if you don't have to. They are exhausting to wear and hugely impractical in scenarios where you have to move faster than a snail's pace. They are also very difficult to actually wear correctly, and I don't just mean it's a pain to put on. The inside of the masks quickly gather condensation from your breath, and as you breathe in and out, they inflate and deflate, touching your mouth. Gross. Instinctively, you pinch and pull the mask off of your mouth. Hello, contamination. Then the elastic starts to roll up or down the back of your head, and now the mask is touching your eyelashes. Great. Now it's slipped down and there's a gap next to your nose. Do you wear glasses? Because now you can't see as they've fogged up. Fantastic. Got a beard? That's a shame. Honestly, they're a nightmare, but when I'm faced with a measles patient, I will tolerate the mask. In fact, generally, in medical settings, we primarily ask the patients to wear the masks, as it stops them from coughing and sneezing on furniture, equipment, and other patients. Even with the best cough etiquette, which not a lot of people have, it's impossible to completely contain a splutter. So, should we all be wearing masks to protect ourselves? Well, unless you're in a high-risk environment, like working in a clinic or an emergency department, or travelling in an area with many confirmed cases, realistically, no. Especially not if you haven't been trained in how to use personal protective equipment. In fact, one of the best ways to ensure a contagion is spread quickly is to give personal protective equipment to everyone without training them in how to use it. That thing you're using to protect yourself will just as easily be a vector for contamination if it's not used properly. One thing I see a lot of when out and about is people wearing masks badly. There are a few cultural issues to consider when you see people wearing masks around the place. If they are from East Asian countries, there is a history there which luckily passed Australia by almost entirely. 17 years ago, when SARS struck, hundreds of people in East Asia died, and mask wearing became compulsory in many cities. What that unfortunately led to was also poor mask use and bad habits, which is why you see many people wearing them around their chin or hanging off of one ear. Another problem with thousands of people wearing masks badly and unnecessarily is that there is only a finite amount of them, and suppliers are starting to take advantage and price gouging is already happening. There are signs up in the operating theatres where I work reminding us not to waste them, because the stock is now being kept under lock and key due to short supply. Yep, that's correct, we are running out of surgical masks in the operating theatres. Patients and visitors have been caught stuffing their pockets with them when they think no one's looking. Panic has well and truly taken hold. So, other than the supply issues, what are the risks of widespread mask use? Well, during the bushfires, a very real danger was a false sense of safety that masks were giving people. The general health advice was to stay out of the smoke and only go outside when absolutely necessary. But I saw people sitting in the park wearing masks when there was literally ash falling from the sky. They must have assumed they were safe because of the mask. Absolutely not true. The other problem associated with poor technique is that instead of protecting yourself by wearing one, you could easily infect yourself instead. Every time you touch the mask, you should wash your hands. Every time you take the mask off your face, it should be thrown away and replaced. Think about it. If you're wearing a mask and talking with Sam, who has a respiratory infection but doesn't know it yet, every time they talk, tiny droplets are hitting your mask. Later on, you go and talk with Joe, and while you're talking, your mask is cutting into your nose, so you pull it away from your face, carry on talking, and touch something, maybe your phone. Then perhaps you hand your phone to Joe to recommend a podcast. Joe touches their mouth. Later, you rub your eye. Yuck. So ultimately, what can we do to protect ourselves? Well, if it's smoke or pollution, download an app that shows the local air quality and stay indoors when it's bad. And lobby your local politicians to act on climate change and pollutants. And if it's pathogens you're concerned about, well, first off, make sure you're fully vaccinated and get your flu vax when it's available. Practice excellent hand hygiene and test your skills. Put some moisturiser on your hands, close your eyes and pretend you're washing your hands, then open your eyes and see the spots that you're routinely missing. Stop touching your face. Stop touching your face. Stop touching your face, please. Clean your phone occasionally. Clean things like doorknobs and taps in your home. We don't know how long some pathogens can survive on surfaces. Practice excellent respiratory etiquette. Don't cough or sneeze without covering your mouth. Ideally, use a tissue or the crook of your elbow. They call this the vampire cough. It's brilliant. If you must cough into your hand, use the back of your hand and immediately wash or use alcohol hand rub. Support the work of unions to protect paid sick leave so the people making your food and driving you places can afford to take time off when they're unwell. These are all things you should be doing anyway, but these are definitely things you should have perfected before you reach for a mask. But sometimes a mask is a valid and necessary accessory. If you're going to be out and about in an area with a number of confirmed cases of viral respiratory infection, for example, if you've got a cough or a cold and you're wanting to limit your infectious spread, ideally isolation would be the first line of defence, but it's not always practical. So what is the right way to wear a mask? Well, to start with, make sure the mask is the correct size and type for you and the situation. Wash your hands or use alcohol hand rub before touching the mask or your face. Make sure the top of the mask fully covers your nostrils and the lower part is under your chin. Pinch the nose wire so it moulds to the shape of your nose, creating a close seal along the top. Any time you touch the mask, wash your hands. And replace the mask when it becomes contaminated or if you have to remove it. If you're wearing a P2 mask and you're able to breathe freely, you're wearing it wrong. Sorry. If you're wearing either type of mask and it doesn't leave a mark across your face when you take it off, it's too loose to be effective. If it's comfortable, it's not on correctly. Sorry. If you have a beard, shave it into a tiny goatee or decorative moustache. Do you see how impractical all of this is? Now, stop touching your face and go wash your hands.
Be Reasonable is the interview show from the Merseyside Skeptic Society, where each month I speak to someone about their fringe beliefs. Over the years I've spoken to psychics, UFO believers, moon landing deniers, flat earthers, hollow earthers and all manner of unusual conspiracy theorists. But I've also talked to AIDS denialists, white supremacists, gay conversion therapists. I even interviewed Jim Humble, the inventor of Miracle Mineral Supplement, a form of industrial bleach that he and his followers use to treat cancer and HIV. This isn't a debate show, and my aim isn't to win an argument. But when we listen to how people promote and justify the ideas that we disagree with, even the dangerous ones, I think we become much more effective at countering those ideas. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, look for Be Reasonable on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else that podcasts live.
Logical fallacies. What are logical fallacies, and why is it important that critical thinkers should know about them? A logical fallacy is an error we can make in reasoning, but it usually crops up when we are discussing or arguing our point of view. Some people might even knowingly use them to try and score cheap points in an argument due to intellectual laziness. They are traps we can fall into, but if we know what to look out for, we can spot them when they occur and stop ourselves from using them. This week we'll look at the appeal to antiquity.
Also known as the appeal to tradition, this is when you argue an idea or practice is valid because it has been in use, or even thought to have been in use, for tens, hundreds, or thousands of years.
Many ideas have withstood the test of time. Our ancient ancestors discovered amazing things that still hold true today. If you eat certain plants, they will make you sick, whereas if you eat other plants, they can help make you feel better, and so on. But that doesn't mean that every idea or practice used for many years is therefore right or even real.
People have been doing it this way for generations. If it worked for them, it must be right.
Maybe or maybe not. For many years it was thought that bloodletting or bleeding sick people would help cure them. This was done for generation after generation. However, We now know that this was far more harmful than helpful.
Raw milk is safe to drink, as our ancestors did so for thousands of years, and they were fine.
Firstly, our ancestors did in fact sometimes become sick from drinking raw milk. Furthermore, the Industrial Revolution resulted in increased transportation and storage times of milk, rendering it less safe than when it was drunk at the farm of origin. This led to the development of pasteurisation, which helped provide safe milk without any reduction in nutrition. It has saved countless lives as it kills harmful organisms responsible for such diseases as listeriosis, typhoid fever, tuberculosis and diphtheria. Foodborne illnesses are particularly dangerous for anyone with weakened immunity, such as the elderly, young children and pregnant women. Others with more robust immunity will probably survive food poisoning, but it's an unnecessarily unpleasant experience that can be avoided by drinking pasteurised milk rather than raw milk. Just because a practice has existed for many generations, that doesn't make the belief in the practice true.
Homeopathy is hundreds of years old. If it didn't work, no one would use it. Yet, millions of people rely on it and use it every day.
There is no doubt in the scientific community that homeopathy does not work and cannot work. The principles on which it is based have been shown over the years to be false. To be fair, it was invented at a time when our knowledge of medicine and biology was far less sophisticated than it is today. And by the way, it does not matter how many people think something works or something is right. That is known as the appeal to popularity and will be the subject of next week's segment. Knowing a logical fallacy when you hear one, and even knowing its name, is important when arguing your point of view. However, you may come across as arrogant and not get very far if you call it out by name to your opponent when you hear it being used. If your opponent calls you out for using one, it's time to stop and think about how you are making your case. Use your knowledge of logical fallacies wisely, and remember that even if your point of view is right and you know all the pitfalls in arguing your case, it doesn't always mean you'll win on the day. And as skeptics, we must also remember that we too can be wrong at times. I'm Michelle Bijkersma from the VIII Skeptics. Thanks for listening.
Dr. Harriet Hall, MD, known to thousands as the Skepdoc, a retired family physician and former Air Force flight surgeon. She writes about medicine, so-called complementary and alternative medicine, science, quackery, and critical thinking. Harriet now has a free course, a series of 10 video lectures on science-based medicine and alternative medicine. The videos and an accompanying course guide can be found by following the link at skepdoc.info or by visiting web.randy.org/educational-modules.html. Topics covered in the series are science-based medicine versus evidence-based medicine, what is CAM, chiropractic, acupuncture, homeopathy, naturopathy and herbal medicine, energy medicine, miscellaneous alternatives, pitfalls in research, and science-based medicine in the media and politics. Harriet covers each topic in a matter-of-fact, no-nonsense way that's sure to educate and entertain. Skepdoc.info.
Now, here's the latest update from the Australian Skeptics, the Australian Skeptics Inc., or ASI, newsletter number 92. It starts off with save the date, Skepticon 2020, when? The 23rd to the 25th of October 2020, where? Mantra on View, 22 View Avenue, Surfers Paradise in Queensland. Skepticon 2019 was such a big hit that I'm really looking forward to Skepticon 2020, the Australian Skeptics National Convention. The next item, Psychic Day in Court. Psychic medium Debbie Malone believed she knew where missing Sydney woman Lynette Dawson's body was buried after visiting her home on Sydney's northern beaches 2 decades after she vanished. A full report, including a legal opinion on the implications, will be published in the March 2020 issue of The Skeptic. That's the journal from Australian Skeptics. Next news item, UK homeopaths accredited but forbidden from offering autism treatment. While the UK Professional Standards Authority, PSA, says it will be rewriting its accreditation of the Society of Homeopaths, there are conditions that its members can no longer claim to treat certain conditions. Homeopaths have been warned that they have 3 months to stop advertising therapies that claim to treat autism. While the limitations are good news, others, such as the Good Thinking Society, are disappointed that homeopaths will be receiving accreditation at all. The Good Thinking Society has legal advice that the 2019 accreditation of homeopaths was illegal and has taken out a legal challenge to that decision, which is due to be heard by the UK High Court on March the 8th. The Good Thinking Society says that, quote, "We need to take some time to carefully examine this new accreditation decision and to discuss with our legal team what implications it may have for our case." Other news items include atmospheric CO2 helps plants grow, but no excuse to downplay climate change. Also, how Peter Brock's crystal obsession tore the Holden dealer team apart. While we watch Holden disappear over the horizon on the motorway of life, give a little thought to Peter Brock's crystal polarizer and his parting of the ways with Holden 33 years ago. And this is to do with so-called orgone energy, one of these energies unknown to science that the Australian skeptics have been investigating for many years. New Zealand comedian on aliens. Also, are ghosts real? 10 scientific explanations for paranormal activity. And lastly, mad Mike Hughes dies in rocket crash. Eccentric flat earther proves the world is flat, at least from his fatal point of view. Sad outcome, because we can always use a few characters, but almost inevitable considering his homemade rocket and distrust of science. The March 2020 issue of The Skeptic will be out soon, with a feature on science, pseudoscience and politicians. Not to mention science, pseudoscience and business management, how good are paranormalists' practices, and a good old-fashioned UFO cult. Plus a lot more. If you go to www.skeptics.com.au and scroll to the bottom of the page, you too can sign up for this regular newsletter.
Hi there, I'm Abhijit and I host the Rationable podcast on BeRationable.com. What does rationable mean after all? Simply that we need to be rational and reasonable in our beliefs and conversations. We don't want to be trolls now, do we? Plenty of them around anyway. Every couple of weeks, I science the hell out of alternative medicines, health and nutrition fads, social media forwards, science news, and lots more. I wasn't always a skeptic and I'm definitely not a scientist, so I use my laymaness and my experiences to show how I've gotten better at using critical thinking techniques to figure out the real from the fake, and that you can too. We all need to be better skeptics in this crazy world. So join me, Abhijit, on the Rationable podcast, which is available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, and pretty much any podcatcher you prefer. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BeRationable, or like my Facebook page at Rationable. On Facebook, you can also join Rationable Conversations, a group where we test our biases, leave our logical fallacies at the door, and have conversations about science, skepticism, and our beliefs. Of course, you can find all of my articles, podcast episodes, and lots more on www.berationable.com. See you there, and until then, always be rationable.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Look, I'm here out in the foyer. It's a big thing. It's been a big weekend. And one of the people is a major draw card here I've got with me right now. Who have we got here?
It's me, it's Cara, Santa Maria.
Well, you are part of this SGU, which is a huge draw card. Congratulations on selling out of books immediately.
Oh, thank you.
In fact, I think you opened the box and they were gone.
I think that's how it worked. Apparently there are a few more coming in today, but they'll probably be gone pretty quickly too.
How do you go when you're on the road as much as you are? Because you're hardly even on the show sometimes because you're very busy. You're working on a PhD. You've got all sorts of things going on.
You know, people always ask if I love traveling all over the world, and I always say I love it until I don't anymore.
You're a big fan of Africa.
I am, and it's a ton of fun. Actually, I was lucky enough earlier in the week that the Australian consulate to Namibia gave me a Friends of Namibia award.
Oh.
I'm not sure what that does, but it's pretty cool.
You're spreading positive thoughts about it.
Yeah.
When we do watch the news, often it's not a good thing. They don't say, oh, there's been this development there or there's been these great roads opened. It's always people sick.
Yeah, I also think that most people in the West think of Africa as a country. They don't understand quite how diverse it is and quite how many different languages are spoken, different cultural groups are there. And there's so many beautiful countries in Africa.
I've been asking a few questions about skepticism, and I was looking at the Bent Spoon Award that the skeptics give out, reading press releases from the 70s through, and in the early 70s, in the 80s, dolphins got mentioned a lot with the paranormal, and dolphins just stopped being mentioned in the early 80s. Why do you think dolphins were big with the paranormal set, not now?
Maybe it's because I don't know why they wouldn't be mentioned now, but I think there has always been like an interest in dolphins because they're really intelligent. And so a lot of people, do you remember that when people were doing like dolphin therapy and they were trying to like communicate with dolphins and things like that? That's pretty funny, actually. Why do you think that's not popular anymore?
I was thinking we've got a Dolphins of the Gaps here, because science has told people what's going on with dolphins. Not completely, but it's maybe filled in those gaps, and people go, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, dolphins are boring. Yeah. On to the unicorn.
Yeah, the dolphins at the gap. Unicorn of the gaps is much easier there. What is the latest thing that you've come into with skepticism? I mean, woo goes in circles, but is there a new one that's come up and you've gone,
New. I mean, very, very new. Let's think about that. I think some of the medical woo, they always get really, really creative, right? So like the turmeric infusions and some of these kind of woo-woo medical things where they used to just put it in your latte and now you want to just like inject it straight into your veins. I think we've got to be careful about that.
What about people like Sam Harris that are having a spiritual journey with DMT and things like that? Do you think that's an old thing returning or something new?
I mean, I think that I'm of two minds about that because I do think that people take it too far and they get into the woo, but I also think that there's some really interesting stuff that we haven't really, psychologically speaking, some of these psychedelics actually do have interesting effects on individuals. So things like psilocybin, maybe DMT, but more psilocybin and MDMA in people who are approaching death, they've actually shown really positive outcomes. PTSD, for example, positive outcomes there. So I think it's one of those things like a lot of pseudoscience where there's a kernel of truth, and so then people take it to be like with CBT or THC that it just cures everything. And no, it doesn't.
What's your like when people go, gotcha, Ms. Skeptic? How do you snap back at people like that? Because they normally go for a gap thing that you can't explain.
Yeah, I try not to snap back too much, and I try to really take the time to understand where those people are coming from. You know, I don't experience too much of the gotchas because I also don't gotcha to other people very often. So I think for me what's important is understanding why somebody is so hook, line, and sinker, especially in Los Angeles where I live, for kind of the the food and the anti-medical woo.
Is there a new one there?
Yeah, well, it's just very kind of new agey, hippie, like the green juices and the detoxes and the whatever. And so it's trying to understand, where are they coming from? Why are they so attached to this, so that maybe I can meet them where they are.
I was just talking to someone earlier there with the Instagram influencers having it, like they've taken over from women's magazines to a certain extent. So while you're waiting in the checkout, instead of seeing the magazines, you'll be looking at your phone and seeing these fabulous people that have crystals that are doing things for them and that. How are you going to fight that? That's a tough one.
I know, especially like what are they? They're like the celery diet and the celery water and everything. Gosh, it's tough, right? Because you see these people that are really beautiful, that have a lot of followers, and you just really want to be like them. And well, maybe if I just drink celery water, I'm going to be hot and rich and famous just like her.
And you had their parents with the DNA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, I think this is a function of internet culture and of FOMO, kind of fear of missing out culture, and always wanting to be. It's just the new celebrities. I don't think it's any different than the celebrities on the magazines.
Speaking of celebrities, how you get on with the rest of them there? Because they can be difficult. I mean, look,
go to their heads, okay?
Look, Steve's great, but Jay, troublemaker. Look, he should be studying now, and he's looking at some old Tintin comics.
Yeah, it barely fits through the door, doesn't it, his head?
Well, look, have a good time. And is there one sentence that anyone can carry into their day to give a critical thinking aspect to it whenever they're confronted by something? I thought you might have a simple mantra.
I would say, be skeptical and use empathy.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you. What's been your favourite thing all weekend here at Skepticon?
Well, I actually went and saw the private show for the Skeptics Guide, and I got to meet them and got my everything signed.
Did you get a book, did you?
Yeah, I got a book.
How did you do that? Because basically as soon as the box was open, it was empty. How did you manage to get that?
My boyfriend actually bought me one months ago for my birthday.
He did the AFL jump over everybody to get the book, did he?
Pretty much. Well, it was in April when my birthday was, so I got it in like October.
So was it great fun to meet them? Were they? I have to ask this. I know it's an odd question. Were they in any way different in person as you thought they might be? Because it's a one-way friendship we have with people on a podcast.
Well, I didn't really know what they looked like, but when I saw Evan Bernstein, I was like, oh my God, it's Adam Savage.
Yes. Yeah, when I first saw him when he arrived, I decided not to make that joke. You could get away with it, but that, yes, because it's the beard, isn't it?
It is definitely the beard, and I also look like Daisy Ridley. So I've got a photo of him and me looking. He looks like Adam Savage. I look like Daisy Ridley. So we've got like a doppelganger photo.
Good. That is good. And look, and Jay Novello is like Jay Novello, really, isn't he? Like, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, you expect that kind of.
Pretty much, yeah. No, they're all very lovely people.
Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too.
Thank you. Well, of course, the heart and soul of any great skeptical group selling merch is the person at the merch table. Who have we got here?
Jennifer Bernstein, Evan's wife.
Oh, right. And so does he have you do this very often?
As often as possible.
Oh, so what do you like as a salesperson?
Meeting people.
Oh, okay, cool. What do you got left here? Because we've all talked about the whole. Basically, as soon as you opened the box, the books were gone. Really.
Really, they sold very quickly. So after their private show, we sold a ton of books.
Oh, right.
And then we had to scramble to get the last 9 in Melbourne to arrive here this morning, and now they're gone. So we have some T-shirts left.
Yes, yeah. And what seems to be the thing that everyone goes for if there's no books? Pens or what?
Pens and what are these called? Coins.
Oh, challenge coins.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So they go for the coins. The pens and pins have been selling.
Oh, I spoke to Jay. I said, Jay, what can't you move? And they said, look, we bought far too many of the power balance bands of our own, but they bought too many.
I was talking to a gentleman earlier. He said that he bought one and he wears it, but he never gets to talk about it because they assume that it's a power band.
It's a real one.
And I was like, you have to tell them it's an anti-power band.
Yes, exactly. A placebo band, I believe they were called as well.
They are, yes.
What's your woo that... Because you've got to put up with this at home all the time. So, really? You're being incredulous about something again, are you? So how does it go? I mean, do you ever say, enough with the skepticism, let's just going to go with what we believe for the next hour? Ever or not?
No.
No?
Never.
Okay.
So when Evan and I started dating, here's a little snippet for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
He put me through a little test to see if I was a critical thinker.
Wow. Okay. So, well, let us maybe do this at home. What did he do, and how did you react to it? Because I've got to say, that's a bit of a test. I mean, really a test.
Yeah, I know. On our first date, we were out to dinner, and he asked me when my birthday was, and I said it's in November, and he did this whole little like cold reading thing. I go like this, what are you doing? You trying to test me? And he laughed. He goes, yeah. And I was like, well, I don't know what to say to that. My birthday is in November 3rd, and what are we doing? So he knew that we could date for a length of time, that I wasn't the other girls who have done the, I believe in ghosts, or I believe in mediums, or, right, I was a girl who was going to...
I'm a Scorpio.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I would have thought, is Connecticut more wooey? I thought that California's your woo capital there. I mean, Cara would have trouble getting a date that is more in California than you would in Connecticut. I thought there might be a bit more skepticality in there.
I'm not really sure if there's more or less, but California certainly is woo-tastic, Maynard, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's it. Because you have lots of ghost houses up that way, don't you?
Well, in Connecticut, because it's one of the 13 colonies from England, right, it's old. So people are like, this is haunted, or that is haunted, or... if you've read Evan's chapter in their book, it's about Ed and Lorraine.
I'd like to, but they're all being sold.
Well, check out Evan's chapter in their book. He talks about Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were ghost hunters in Connecticut. Yep.
And I was always a big fan of the old radio show Johnny Dollar, who was the insurance investigator with the amazing expense account. It ran from the 30s through to the 50s, 70s, and he was based in Hartford, Connecticut, which I'm told is the insurance capital and just a little bit dull. Is it full of insurance salesmen, Hartford, Connecticut, or not?
Insurance salesmen and lawyers.
Oh, okay, because they go together. Really? Where one follows, the other one's got to go, hey, there might be some claims here I can chase. Hey, I might be able to sell some insurance.
That's right. Absolutely, Maynard.
Okay, so you're thinking on the map of America, one of the exciting places might not be Hartford, might not be on that map.
It wouldn't be on that map. I wouldn't say, come to Hartford.
It's not the Las Vegas of is that there, is it? No?
No.
No, okay, good. Okay, I like to get new. Well, I sense...
New York.
I sense...
New York.
Oh, look, to me, New York is that I love it so much more than Los Angeles because everything in the Western world is there, the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything. And you can walk out your door in your hotel or if you live there and have an adventure, good or bad, anytime.
Absolutely. And New York never sleeps. It really is. It's true. It never sleeps.
Wow. Okay. Unlike Sydney, we've had to go to bed at 6 o'clock at night now, yeah.
Yeah. Melbourne seems to... I've enjoyed watching the difference between the work week and the weekend. The weekend gets a little sleepier here.
Yeah, a bit like downtown LA,
Yeah. And but I can see the Ferris wheel, the observation wheel. Yeah. So I enjoy that light show every night.
Wow. So you must be enjoying...
We've never seen it turn. Does the wheel turn?
I couldn't tell you. They might be having a quiet weekend or something. But you must get around the world doing this skeptical thing. Is there anywhere where you've gone and you thought, oh, wow, this is a bit wilder than I thought?
Wilder?
Yeah.
They get such a reaction wherever they go. Maynard, it's really a joy to kind of watch them take off. I was telling Jessica before that I've been there since the beginning. So I remember sitting in Steve's living room when they were the New England Skeptical Society. And
boy, doesn't that sound nerdy? Yes, we're going to tell you some things.
And stapling the newsletters, right, and getting them ready to be mailed.
Wow.
So that was, we would sit in Steve's living room and we would have dinner, and it's kind of how the podcast was born, sitting around Steve's dining room table.
Wow. That is amazing. And now here you are sitting around someone's dining room table in Melbourne.
That's right. And selling merch.
Well, I look forward to seeing you later. And good luck with the merch. And see if you can really move those wristbands. Jay's getting shirty about them.
I'll work on it, Maynard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allora ciao, io mi chiamo Professore Dave, io ti voglio insegnare tutte le cose sulla scienza. Parliamo di fisica, di chimica, biologia, astronomia, matematica e tante altre cose. Guardami su YouTube, arrivederci. Hey everyone, this is Professor Dave. I want to teach you about all kinds of things regarding science. I want to tell you about physics. I want to tell you about chemistry, biology, astronomy, math, and many, many more things. Come check me out on YouTube. The channel is called Professor Dave Explains. Take it easy.
He knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave Explains.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, we've had a wonderful day at Skepticamp on the Surf Coast. I'm here with some likely skeptics at the... Where are we, Michelle?
Aries Pub.
At the Aries Pub. We're just winding down. Did you have a good Skepticamp, Steve Roberts?
Yeah, I did, Richard. We tested this bizarre wine improving card. We had great fun doing that.
We did, and a report will be coming up on the next episode of the Skeptic Zone. Luckily, after this, we're going back to your place, I think, for some wine and peanuts, I believe.
Peanuts, of course.
And using the wine card to test the wine as well. Huh?
And using we should have a peanut card, I think.
A peanut card, that's a good idea, yeah. A microphone card.
Anyway, it's a wonderful time here in this part of the world. Tune in to the next episode of the Skeptic Zone for a full report on Skepticamp. But for now, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Airlies Inlet, Victoria. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Well, folks, I'm here at Anglesea in Victoria.
There's another one.
And there's another one. Where?
Maybe the fourth or fifth one.
And
the Earth's shadow's about where it's coming to now.
I'm with Steve Roberts.
It's fading. It's gone.
And Steve, we're looking up the night sky here at Anglesea. Where? Oh, there it is. Yeah.
When it gets to that hump of four stars,
it'll disappear. What are we talking about? We are talking about satellites because the sky here at Anglesea in Victoria...
It's gone.
It's gone. No, it's there. Look, I can see it.
Another one.
It's another one.
Oh, there's another one there.
You're kidding.
A whole hail of them.
I have never seen so many satellites in my life. They're all streaming above us, and they all disappear about...
A bit further, it'll fade.
Gone.
Fading out.
There it is, gone, yeah.
Fading, no, it's gone. Yeah.
Steve, why are these satellites disappearing, and why are there so many?
Well, there were many satellites. You can see 5 or 10 an hour normally, but we're seeing an incredible number now. I don't know, but the Earth's shadow is there. The sun's down there and to the left of where we're sitting. So the Earth's shadow's up there and to the right. And when the satellites move into that, they move into the Earth's shadow from the sun, and there's no light shining on them, so you can't see them.
But we've just seen a parade of, 7 in a row?
7 in a row, yeah. Well, there's like 70,000 up there, or some vast number.
Yeah.
And some are bright, some are not. Some actually have a sort of flat metal panel on them, and they turn. So as the metal panel turns, you get this flash of intense sunlight.
Yeah.
And you think, what was that? Yeah.
Well, all those satellites were disappearing as they in the vicinity of Orion, right? So we are guessing, or it's a good educated guess to say that's where the shadow of the Earth is, right? Yeah.
The sun's down there to the left, and Orion's up there to the right. It's dark. The sky's dark, so you can't see where the Earth's shadow is. But the Earth casts a shadow into space.
But we saw a parade of 7 or 8, and now nothing. Where are they? We're looking around the sky. We can't see them.
You had 7 or 8. I mean, don't ask for more.
Normally we see 1 or 2, but 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And we were looking at all the stars we can see tonight. Orion is beautiful with Betelgeuse doing its weird stuff at the moment. Across to the other side, we can see the Southern Cross. Yeah. The Magellanic Clouds are up at the moment, so it's beautiful viewing here.
The moon is a very, very small moon and just setting, so the sky is quite dark. If it was a full moon, you wouldn't see anything.
No, we're very lucky. And there's no clouds. It's a completely clear night.
You can see the Pleiades.
Yeah, you saw the Pleiades.
Yeah.
You go to the belt of Orion and drive it down and to the right, to the left, and you see the Hyades with Aldebaran, a V shape, and you see the Pleiades just below that, only for a couple of months a year.
But the Orion and the Pleiades are visible in the northern hemisphere, but the Southern Cross, as we look towards the other side, we can see now that's not visible in the northern hemisphere, but we can't see Polaris, for example.
Well, we can't see the Plough or Polaris, but we have the southern,
or the Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper, as it's called, yeah. Same thing. We have the Southern Cross and other stars, but actually the southern sky is more wonderful than the northern sky.
Well, of course.
Of course it is, yeah. You get better objects and more stuff to look at, you know. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, we've come down here for Skepticamp, which is happening tomorrow, but this is an extra special... What was that? I thought I saw something weird up in the sky.
Possum.
A possum.
A possum.
A possum in a tree. I thought it was a UFO, but it was probably just a possum in a tree.
Well, you would say that. You're a typical Sagittarius.
I am a typical... Actually, I'm a Scorpio, I discovered. How about that?
You're going to sing in the tail, are you?
I do.
Yes, I'm a Gemini. I've got two personalities.
No, dear, here we go. And so this is just the icing on the cake, I think. The beautiful starry night. It'll be a good conference tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you, Steve Roberts.
No worries, Richard.